Hello and welcome to Just Jets episode number 226. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary back with another video, and in today's episode we are going to get into a few different things. A former Aaron Rodgers teammate making some bold predictions for the New York Jets in 2024, as well as a stat that saying broke my brain might be putting it lightly. I really, the course of my day was thrown off yesterday when I saw this, and I said, I have to put this in the episode and talk about just how insane of a stat that is. And of course, we will do your voicemails, but before we get into the first comment from Aaron Rodgers' former teammate, wanted to mention that tickets are on sale for the Talkin' Jets group outing for Week 4 against the Denver Broncos. All-inclusive ticket comes with a tailgate package, so you get to attend the Tailgate Joe tailgate before the game, food and drinks included. Get a ticket to sit with us up in section 312, as well as get on the field after the game. So you get all those things for the all-inclusive ticket. If you just want the ticket or just want the tailgate, you could do that as well on the website, talkinjets.com. Really looking forward to that. Tickets are going quick, so get in on them while you can. All right, let's hop into the episode. So, go figure. David Bakhtiari has some positive things to say about Aaron Rodgers. They are attached at the hip and very, very close. Not saying that this is surprising, but it is. David Bakhtiari with a quote. He was on the Adam Schefter podcast, and Adam Schefter tweeted out a clip from the show with this quote in it that I'll read it for you in a second, but I'm not going to lie to you. I thought the notification when Adam Schefter tweeted it out, because it had in like the little preview, David Bakhtiari and Jets in there. Obviously, when you check your phone, I'm not reading to completion. I'm kind of just looking there and like seeing what caught my eye, and it was David Bakhtiari Jets. I was like, oh, here we go. It's coming. David Bakhtiari signs 1-year deal to, with the New York Jets, this and that. So that was not the case. Instead, it was a quote. And he says, I think for sure they make the playoffs. I don't think it's wise for any betting man to say that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to make the playoffs. Now, in Aaron Rodgers' final year in Green Bay, they just missed out on the playoffs in the last game of the regular season against the Detroit Lions. And unfortunately, 4 plays last season he spent for the New York Jets. So, unfortunately, didn't really get to see that come to fruition last year. The Jets thought they were ending their playoff drought a year ago. Now it's kind of the same thing, right? Like most expectations that you had last year for the Jets have now carried over into this upcoming season. And it's hard not to feel the same way if you are a Jets fan. And we get some negative calls, we get some negative fans, but I've seen this team win 7 games each of the last 2 years with about as bad as it humanly gets at the quarterback position. Whoever you want to toss out there, Mike White, Mike White, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, right on down the line, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian. The Jets are trotting out the likes of those quarterbacks, and they're still winning games. And I'm not saying a 7-10 season is good enough. It was an incredibly frustrating 7-10 season in 2023, especially because they didn't set themselves up well at the backup quarterback spot and on the offensive line. And I think those were the 2 big things that really derailed their season. But I don't know how you could watch this team over the last couple of years, see their problems on the offensive line, watch them go out, sign a left tackle, sign a left guard, trade for a starting right tackle, and draft a first-round left tackle, and still have that same concern. I'm not saying it's going to be the best offensive line ever created. It's not going to be the 2009, Jets here. But are they significantly better and not going to be bottom 3? Yeah, I think that is a pretty fair assumption or pretty fair guess. And even if Aaron Rodgers comes back and is middle of the road just okay, flat old average, I think the Jets will be fine. And the oddly enough, the second part of the open here has to do with an insane stat just talking about the New York Jets and their offense. Really, well, the stat is a defensive stat, but it implies just how bad the offense is. And I don't want to give too much away here, but again, like, I don't know. And besides anyone who wants to say, A, I don't like Aaron Rodgers, so I'm going to root and bet against him. Or B, go, oh, that's the Jets. Something's going to go wrong. That's the only pushback you get on saying, I think the Jets are going to be a playoff team. Now, do I think the Jets are a 14, 15-win team this year? No, I don't think that's a fair expectation. I don't know if anybody in the league is a 15-win team this year. But should they have enough to win 10, 11, 12 games? Yes. They play in a tough division. I get that. You know, Miami's a very talented team, explosive offensively. Buffalo's owned the division for half a decade. Understand that fully, not disrespecting them, but at the same time, you also have to look at just the rosters. And if you're coming to the conclusion that, oh, it's not going to be the Jets because just things don't work out, like that's such a lazy cop-out way of looking at things. And then the Detroit Lions would have never ended up in the NFC Championship game. The Cincinnati Bengals would have never went to a Super Bowl. Like, try to take away the looking at the helmet and going, oh, this team can't do that because insert thing that happened in the past here. That's how you get you can't draft CJ Stroud. Ohio State quarterbacks suck. Oh, you're going to draft Patrick Mahomes out of Texas Tech. When was the last time a Texas Tech quarterback worked out? That's when you run into those things. So for an Aaron Rodgers teammate to go to bat for him and say that the Jets are going to be a playoff team, I'm not really all that surprised by it. But number two, I also think, and more importantly, that we're going to see a pissed off version of Aaron Rodgers this year. I think he's going to play with a big chip on his shoulder. I think that's what he wanted to do last year. I think he wanted to, show that he could do it last year. And on top of, he missed essentially the entire season. And then on everything that's happened, whether, the mini camp stories or getting kicked off the McAfee show or, the podcast appearances, whatever, all the extracurricular things. I think Aaron Rodgers likes playing this villain role in a way. And for Jet fans, they just want to see an okay starting quarterback. It'd be great to have an amazing quarterback. I hope Aaron Rodgers comes back and is elite and putting up MVP numbers. That's my dream. But even if you just take like 15th in passing yards, 50, like just straight across the board, top 15 in the league in every one of the categories, the Jets don't get that. I've been watching this team for 22 years, and I can count on one hand how many like competent quarterbacked seasons the Jets have had over that time. Pretty much everything else, they were bottom of the barrel, horrific quarterback teams. It doesn't matter if it was a veteran. It doesn't matter if it was a first-round pick. It doesn't matter if it was a day 3 pick. So I'm excited to watch Aaron Rodgers, and I'm glad, by the way, that it wasn't this is a David Bakhtiari signing notification. That's not something I'd be in on. I talked about why I'd prefer an interior offensive lineman if they were to add somebody. I would not be running to the front of the line to sign Bakhtiari. Now, the second thing, this is a good transition spot to get into because this stat that Michael Nania tweeted out this week, I think really broke I had to think about this for a few hours, just stewing in it after doing Big Apple Blitz with Anthony Rivardo. Here's the tweet. It says, mind-blowing Jet stat. Most games allowing 300 yards or fewer since 2022 and the record in those games. Now, for context, it's a top 5, but really there's 3 teams tied for 5th. So there's San Fran, the Jets, Cleveland, Baltimore, Kansas City, Miami, and Buffalo have all done it the most in the last 2 years. San Francisco 18 times has held an opponent to fewer than 300 yards. Their record is 14-4, which is a 7.78 win percentage. So essentially 78% of the time they win when they do that. Cleveland is tied with the Jets at 17. Cleveland is 12-5 in those games. That's a 7.06 win percentage. Baltimore's done it 16 times. They are 11-5 in those games, a 6.88 win percentage. Kansas City, Miami, and Buffalo all 15 times. Kansas City is 11-4. Miami's 12-3. Buffalo's 12-3. 12-3 is an 800 win percentage, or 80% of the time. 11-4 is a 733, so 73.3%. So every single one of those teams has a 68.8% win percentage or higher when they do that. Every single one. The worst is 11 wins. That's the lowest out of, whether it's 15 or 16 games. What do you think the Jets' record is when they hold an opponent to 300 yards or less? Reminder, the lowest one is a 68.8. The Jets, in 17 games over the last 2 seasons, when allowing 300 yards or fewer on defense, have a record of 8-9. 471 win percentage. They are winning 47% of the time when their defense holds an opponent to less than 300 yards. That is just depressing. There is no other word than just flat out depressing. They have 14 wins over the last 2 years, and 8 of them have come when the defense is just absolutely balled out. And they've still lost 9 times in the last 2 years. 9 times in the last 2 years when that's happened. I mean, truly just absolutely remarkable to be that bad offensively. That's what it shows. San Francisco, Cleveland, Baltimore, Kansas City, Miami, Buffalo. You can't even say that Cleveland's been like this stellar quarterbacked team over the last couple of years, but they win the games. That shows the gap that Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, Mike White, Joe Flacco were for this team. I mean, again, to go back to that first segment here while talking about Aaron Rodgers, even if he is just okay, think about how the Jets would have been if they had just not good, not great, okay quarterback play this past year and the year prior. Talking the 15th to 20th best quarterback. Do they make the playoffs? They probably do both years. Genuinely, they probably do, because they found a way to win 7 games with those quarterbacks that I just rattled off the top of my head. Can they get to 10 wins? Can they find 3 more wins on the schedule? I mean, look at what happened last year. You could think of games off the top of your head. New England, week 3 is a perfect example. Atlanta at the end of the year last year is a perfect example. Vegas at the end of the year is a perfect example. Just those 3 games alone gets you to 10. Those 3 games alone get you to 10 wins in 2023. It's really just absolutely remarkable how bad that team was offensively. And it's not just the quarterbacks. You also need to throw some blame Nathaniel Hackett's way. I could tell you that much as well, because that is just truly, truly remarkable. Really is. They, let's see, games they lost to New England in week 3, allowing 15 points. 15 points against. They lost to the Raiders, allowing 16 points. They lost to the Falcons, allowing 13 points. I mean, come on, guys. It's unacceptable. And then you go back the previous year. How about in 2022, who's just as bad? They lost twice to New England. The second one, I think, really stung the most. The 10-3 loss in the game that ended on a punt return for a touchdown. Frustrating. The Buffalo game in Week 14, the Lions game, the Jaguars game, and the 11-6 loss in Miami to close the season. Like, it's just really, really remarkable. It truly, truly is. That's an absurd stat. Every other team is winning at essentially a 69% clip or better, and the Jets will win 47% of the time. That is going to change in 2024, even if Tyrod Taylor's playing. But, man, I saw that stat. It bothered me all day, so I had to share it. Let's get into your voicemails now. We're going to get it rolling with JJ calling in from Florida. He wants to talk the Haason Reddick situation. Come on. There we go.
Hi, Matt. My name is JJ. I'm a transported Floridian now.
Nice.
Question with Haason Reddick. To me, it seems like it's a Jamal Adams redo. I mean, I loved Adams when he came, and then he got too big for his britches and caused a problem. And I see the same thing with Riddick, only he's coming in with the problem. We don't need that. I appreciate his as a player. I appreciate him, but I don't want to see that clubhouse ruined in any way, shape, or form. Those guys are tight. They know what they want. They know how to do it. And this guy could be poison. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, JJ, for calling in. So, I'm upset with Reddick too, and a lot of Jeff fans are. I will say, the difference between Jermaine Johnson and I'm saying JJ and then Jermaine Johnson. The difference between Haason Reddick, there we go, and Jamal Adams is Jamal Adams didn't want to be here anymore, so he went completely off the rails and forced the Jets' hand to trade him. If the New York Jets offered Haason Reddick a contract, I think he would take it and stay. So that is different. He wants to get paid. There's no denying. Like the overlap in this Venn diagram is that both guys wanted to get paid. But I think there's a lot more in the Jamal Adams camp that made him a worse guy. I get the comparison. I do. But just how Jamal handled his exit, how he celebrated on the way out, just everything that has to do with that. Really, the only thing that Haason hasn't done is just not show up and maybe go back on his word that he would show up. Not a one-for-one comparison, but I do get what you mean, like someone who seems maybe a little bit more about him. Like that's maybe the best way that I could put it, but I think he ends up playing this year, whether he gets a contract or not. He's not going to force his way out, and I don't think he's sitting out this season. So this will have a happier ending, I believe, than the Jamal Adams one did. Let's go out to Dovin Israel calling in about training camp.
Hey, Matt. It's Dove from Israel. So I'm actually flying in a few weeks to New York, New Jersey, that area. And I'm probably going to be going to a training camp.
Very nice.
I know a couple years ago I went, and I just missed you. We were at the same training camp, and I just missed you. But I'd love to meet you. What training camps will you be at, if you will be? Yeah, thanks so much.
Absolutely. So I'm going to list off. I don't have any days in mind yet, but here are the dates for training camp in case you guys missed it that are open to the public. So Saturday, July 27th is the first one. Tuesday, July 30th. Saturday, August 3rd. Wednesday, August 7th. Thursday, August 8th. Tuesday, August 13th. Tuesday, August 20th, and then there's a season ticket holder exclusive, which is Wednesday, August 21. I'm going to guess, for me, the Saturday or the Wednesday is probably the best opportunity for me. So that is July 27, August 3rd, or August 7th. Tuesday is a tough one to swing. Thursday's probably also going to be tough for me to get out there. So I will let, if I do get tickets and if I am going to go to a training camp, I will let you guys know. Last year, I was able to go with Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. Green Bean was also there last year on the sideline, which was so cool to see him, and everyone was coming up to to Q-Tip. He went with Q-Tip, and Green Bean got to meet a bunch of people that was so cool. But it's a fun time. It really is. I know, like, Jake Asman's back in New York, so I'm sure he's going to be going to training camps. I've seen Richie and hung out with Richie there. It's awesome. So I definitely want to go out there a couple of times. I went, I believe, twice last year, and it was awesome. So I'm going to do my best to get out there. I just don't know which days yet. I will make everyone aware of which ones I'm going to end up getting out to. But I would like to as well. Hopefully it works out so that I can meet you guys. That'd be very, very cool. Let's go out to PG from Long Island. He wants to talk Hassan Reddick. All right, let's do it.
Hello, Matt O'Leary. PG from Long Island here.
How are you, sir?
Couple things. One, I think this whole Aaron Rodgers not showing up at the 2-day mandatory camp is a big nothing burger. 40-year-old Hall of Fame quarterback. Told him he was not going to be there. Attended most of the 10 or so voluntary OTA. So really, give me a break. And, I don't even care where he was. Hopefully, for his sake, he was at a under 30 all-women mountainside yoga retreat. It just doesn't matter. Second thing is Hassan Reddick. Nothing burger also, but with a little relish. I think that, you mentioned his kind of cryptic tweet. My interpretation of that, when he says that, y'all foolery, he intends on showing up for the, off season.
The training camp.
Start a training camp, work his ass off, and earn that contract he's looking for, whether it's from the Jets or someone else. Anything else doesn't make sense. He needs to keep a positive impression of himself out there. He needs to work hard. He needs to have a good season. So I think, again, he probably decided, you know what, he's a veteran, no pads, doesn't really need to come up to New Jersey to do this, join the team at the start of training camp and have a good season. The other thing I want to talk about is I heard a couple of podcasts this week, one of them saying that they don't believe that Breece Hall will have a top 5 running back as far as yards gained for the year. And another saying that Garrett Wilson will get a record number of attempts his way. The issues I have with that is, in my opinion, and tell me if you agree, I think the Jets going to be a run-first team. With the backfield, the studs they have in the backfield, the young guys, the offensive line they have, they're going to run the ball, and then let, Aaron Rodgers pick his spots as far as with the pass. Keep the other offenses off the field and just be a run-first team. Anyway, tell me what you think of that, and if you agree with that. That's the way I look at it. And always, as always, Matt O'Leary, go Jets.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for calling in. On Hassan Reddick, I agree. I think he'll be there for training camp at some point. I don't think he holds out the season or anything like that. Maybe the Jets change the contract around to get him some more incentives to hit, and that gets his pay up. And then, I feel like that's kind of a split the difference. Doesn't really impact the cap to do it that way nearly as much. So maybe that's the route that they'd like to go, and you're not adding future years to it. For the second part of your call on Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, I haven't started yet. I like to, in the off season or before the season starts, do projections of what I think each guy is going to do. And I try to make it as realistic as possible because you go like in your head, it's so easy to go, oh, this guy gets 1,400, this guy gets 800, and then, bum. And then you add it up and you're like, oh, well, I have Aaron Rodgers throwing for 5,200 yards. Like I try very, very hard to put realistic paces out there. But for just looking at rushing, not all purpose yards, just rushing, Christian McCaffrey led the way by far with 1,459. Derrick Henry had 1,167. So a big gap, essentially a 300-yard difference from number 1 to 2. Kyren Williams was third with 1,144. James Cook, fourth, 1,122. And DeAndre Swift was 5 at 1,049 rushing yards. I think right now I'm probably going to be somewhere around 1,200 to 1,300 rushing yards for Breece Hall. He had 994 on 223 attempts. I think he probably gets closer to 250 rushing attempts this year, if not more than that. And if he does, I think you're looking at closer to 1,300. I think he's going to be 1,800 to 2,000 all-purpose yards is going to be my guess. So I didn't even look at that. But if he hits, let's just use the baseline at 12. That would put him second last year, and the year prior would have put him sixth, I guess. But you had some like Josh Jacobs 16, Derrick Henry 15, Nick Chubb 15. I think he's going to finish close to the top there. I really do. Now, in all-purpose yards, is there a way to do that instead of rushing? Let's do scrimmage stats. Yeah, yards. Scrimmage yards. Christian McCaffrey had 2,023 yards from scrimmage. 1,800 flat would be fourth, which is where Breece finished. Breece Hall finished fourth in yards from scrimmage last year with 1,585. I think he clears 1,800, which is something that Tyreek Hill did and CeeDee Lamb did. Both did that on the receiving end. Receiving yards is going to be much more challenging because you had, 12 players with over 1,200 receiving yards last year. I think Garrett Wilson finished 22nd with 1,042. I think he finishes right around 12, maybe 1,300. So like on the back end of the top 10 in receiving yards. But I think his touchdowns go up. So maybe like, I don't know, 1,250 yards and 9 touchdowns. That'd be a stellar season. Sign me the hell up for that, man. That'd be epic. I like that. Let's close with our guy, Peter, from the beautiful Hudson Valley.
Hey, Matt. It's Peter from up in the hot, easy, humid Hudson Valley, as we're all suffering during this great heat wave before summer actually starts here in June. I wish they would stop having previews of summer and just, keep us with some normal temperatures. That would be great. But calling in this week, as it's now the little bit of break between all the OTAs and such, training camp beginning at the end of July, so it's a slow news time, of course. And trying to think of a topic to give you for a question for this week. So I thought back to how I became a Jets fan, which started back in 1981. So nearly 45 years now, 45 seasons. And of course, remembering those uniforms then that are, being brought back now in a newer, slightly updated style. Love it, of course. And thinking of all the players that the Jets had back then, and, what was my reason for becoming a Jets fan at that time, I think, for me, it was always, besides the Zach exchange, of course, it was, the guys on offense that were two of my favorites, Wesley Walker and Freeman McNeil, that caused me to want to be a Jets fan for that time frame and going forward, especially in the coming years when I drafted Ken O'Brien, so got Altoon. I really love seeing that Jets offense, play decently well back then. Not great, but still, well. And obviously we've got a lot of great players to root for on this current Jets team. So I wanted to ask you, when you became a Jets fan, what player or players were the ones that you gravitated towards as the reason why you became a Jets fan? Like, I want to watch this guy play. So that's my question for this week, to give you something to go on. And as always, go Jets.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. This is going to be a fun one to end the show. I always really, genuinely, and like Green Bean's story I've heard a million times with his Aunt Gina, and they would go out and watch the games. I believe his first game was the Mud Bowl, and they lost, and he was like, just like, I am in on that. But I like hearing, your guys' stories. So those are some really good classic Jets. My dad is someone who gives me the history of these teams. So like I wasn't around in the 80s, but hearing about Klecko and Gastineau, the sack exchange years with Ken O'Brien at quarterback, and Wesley Walker is one of his favorites, and Freeman McNeil. For me, the ones that really jump out. So I was born in '95, so the first year I really, really knew and what was going on and remember really well was 2003. I don't remember the 2002 year when they won the division really, but I count from 2003 on. So Curtis Martin was my guy. Wayne Krebet, Santana Moss, Sean Ellis. I know Sean Ellis is another one of my all-time just classic favorite Jets. Not ever super flashy numbers, but just steady, productive player for a very, very long time for the Jets. Good football player. Those are some of my my earliest memories. The 2004 10-6 year into the playoffs is a big one for me. Chad Pennington, with the deep pass to Santana Moss in the game in San Diego. Doug Bryan is my first sports heartbreak, really, that I remember. That era of New York Jets is when I got into it. And then I was a little bit older. I was in high school for the 2009 and 2010 run. I was in 10th grade in 2010. And they haven't really done much since. From 2010, so from 10th grade to 28, I'm now 20, I'll be 29 this season. So from 15 to 28 years old, that section of my life, think of how many things happened. Get your driver's license, graduate high school, graduate college, start a job, leave a job, go out on your own and work for yourself, get engaged, so many, buy a house. So many things have happened in that stretch from the last time the Jets made the playoffs to this current drought, and when it hopefully comes to a close now. But early 2000s Jets is very nostalgic for me. And some of my guys, specifically from oh my God, I got to tune in to see what they're going to do every week, Curtis Martin. But some of my favorites, like I said, Curtis Martin, Santana Moss, Sean Ellis, and then obviously as I got older, Darrelle Revis and Harris and Mangold and Brick, all part of my Jet fandom. So thank you so much for the call. And thank you so much for listening to the episode today, guys. Really appreciate it. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you get the show. Leave a comment, review. Really appreciate it. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you guys next time.